Okay, so today we're going to add color to our gingerbread houses that we drew last time. So you can add color using whatever you have, colored pencils, markers, crayons, but today I'm going to show you a technique just so that you have it in your toolbox of techniques that you know, of using marker and changing it into watercolor using just water and a paintbrush. To begin, we're actually going to just use a white crayon to put a little highlight on all of the different candies, just to make them look like they're more 3D, because if they're 3D, then they have a shiny spot to them. So anything that I want to stay white, like a small area that I'm worried is going to get covered up with the marker, I'm gonna color white. One of those things would be this peppermint here. I'm gonna color every other area in white. Okay. Now each one of my gumdrops, I'm going to choose a side, and then I'm going to make just a little white mark on that side. Let me zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. It's very hard to see the white crayon. But I'm just right here on the left side of the gumdrop. I'm just doing a little spot of white. Every other area in the candy canes that I drew, I'm going to make white with my crayon. And I'm also going to try to make it look shiny, so the areas that are going to be red, I'm just going to do a little line of white, and you'll see more what I'm talking about later. Gumdrop. The frosting here, I can add some white too. Into each of these candies on the roof. Okay, now comes the fun part. I'm going to use my marker, and if I were to color this with marker, it would take a good amount of time. Instead, I'm just going to outline where my pencil is and make this a closed-in shape. For this technique, you need to use a marker that is like a Crayola marker, because they're water soluble. So that means they're washable and water makes them spread out. If you used Sharpie, this technique would not work. So now that I've outlined this area, I'm going to take my paintbrush, just a little bit of water on it, and that marker will spread when I go over it with the water. It also gives it a cool look, kind of like it's really made of gingerbread because of the different browns. Now this works great on big areas, but smaller areas like this peppermint, if I were you, I would just color them using the marker. So I'm going to color in areas that I didn't color white. That one I did color white. See how my marker won't go over that area? Am I still synced in? Okay. That won't sink in because I put the crayon there. And crayon resists anything wet because it's made of wax. So that's why the paper is protected wherever the crayon was. So this should be available. And that is just going to rub right off. Now I'm going to outline this in brown to make it look like there's a bit of a shadow. I'm going to color in the door also brown. So I outline this area. I'm using a smaller paintbrush. I could color those windows in with blue crayon to make it so that the water doesn't sink in there. That's called wax resist. I'm going to do the same thing to these windows. So you can keep using this technique of outlining and then using the water to spread the marker. But I just want to show you one thing because it's a little tricky about how to do the sky and the ground since they're bigger areas. So with this one, we would just spread it. Same as we did before. Just water, this is just water and a paintbrush, and it just spreads out. With the ground, I'm going to take my blue and since I have a path here, I'm gonna color in the path with a little bit of blue and blue footprints. If you don't have a path, you can just draw some blue lines. So if you didn't have this path, you could just go like this. Just some lines of blue, and then use your paintbrush. Now this is a path, it'll be a little bit darker because it's dug into the snow. And this is just regular snow, so it's going to be a bit lighter, just a little bit of blue. For the sky, I would use crayon or colored pencil to color in the sky if I were you, since it's a bigger area and we don't want to really see any lines in the sky. I would use colors like purples and blues and pinks in the sky to make it look like you're at the North Pole. Now, like I said with the peppermint, if you're doing a small area, you could just color that in. So I'm going to color this red for some little red hots on this gingerbread tree. And since I used crayon for that, the brown marker won't sink into it. If I had used marker, it would spread, the red would spread all over the place. Make sure you don't use too much water. You don't want a big soggy mess on your paper. So there's my tree. I'm going to put a little blue underneath the tree to make it look like there's a shadow. Do my roof. And again, these are small, so I'm going to use crayon on them. I use orange, purple, and yellow. Turn my paper upside down since this is wet. It's going to get all over my hand. So this is the crayon that I drew earlier. You see how the marker will not go, or the water won't go where the crayon, and that makes it look like there's a little shiny spot on our gumdrops. That's called wax resist. See how that looks more 3D? Sometimes when I get a little too much water, like right here, I use a tissue and just blot it up. Okay, so I think that looks pretty much done. When you're finished, please submit a picture of it through Google Classroom through the Assignments tab. And then if you're finished early before our class is done, you can go to artforkidshub.com, you can work on your sketchbook if you have one, or you can free draw. If you have any questions, let me know. I cannot wait to see your finished artwork.